started now. All right, so just like we start all of our webinars, I'm going to go over a couple overview things while I got you guys, and then we'll get into the topic. So first thing, we have decided to switch our webinars to be every other month instead of monthly like last year. But we will continue to do these. We think that they were pretty successful, and so we decided to open it up to externals now. So you might notice that there are a lot more people in this meeting. And so if you guys missed the previous recordings or the previous webinars, all those will be available on our Wiki page. But first, before we get to that, I do want to recommend if you guys are not already signed up for our mailing list, you might want to do that. I just put the link into the chat. That's how you can sign up if you're not already signed up, and that way you'll get emails when we open up registration. So I wanted to note that there. So some upcoming things. I don't think I'm going to mute everyone here. Or somebody beat me to it. Okay, so upcoming meetings, we have our statewide CAD user group meeting coming up in March. The registration is open. So let me throw that registration link in the chat for you guys. So that as our next CAD user group meeting, that registration link, you'll see a link for the agenda there if you guys are wondering what we're going to talk about on that meeting. Then we have another one tentatively scheduled for June. Not open up registration for that yet. Since this is a combination of OhioDOT employees and externals, some of the stuff is going to be just for internals. So I'll try to note that as I go through these slides. So we do have our internal CAD managers user group meeting coming up on March 17th, that's going to be just for the OhioDOT district CAD managers. Some other things we got coming up for internal only here, our upcoming training is the Introduction to CAD Basics and Management training. That is going to be self-enroll on our OhioDOT Learn. We're really trying to target all of our new TCE hires for this. So if you guys have any new TCEs, make sure if they're not already signed up for this, that they are signed up for this. We're going to go over, kind of the basics with MicroStation, ProjectWise, using our workspace, those kind of things. Another internal only training is our OpenRoads Designer training. Again, self-enroll on OhioDOT Learn. Again, this is coming up in March. Again, we're trying to hit those new TCEs. But of course, if anyone needs a refresher and they want to join it, that's also, you can do that. But we really want to make sure we capture the TCEs here. All right, one more thing here is our Wiki page. I like to mention every time, if you guys haven't seen it, haven't been there, I'll post a link in the chat. This is where we're going to organize pretty much all of our content. Our YouTube channel was just getting too cluttered and too hard to find things. So if you haven't seen our Wiki page, go check it out. We have tons and tons of videos out there. It's where you can find our training guides, as well as these recordings will be there too. So this one will be up, give me a day or two to get it up there, but it will be up there. All right, so on to the topic of utilities. So I think a couple months ago, November, I believe, we did a webinar on drainage, and we targeted all the drainage things. And one of the questions came about utilities, and I said I was almost done with that, with workflows and videos. And since then, I've completed that and recorded a bunch of videos on our Wiki page. I kind of threw them all in here. And if you guys want a quick link to that, Let me paste that link in here. So that's going to be like, it takes you straight to all the videos we have on drainage and utilities. So I'm going to go through the utility side. I also want to note that we did push out a new chapter in our Open Roads Designer design training, chapter 900 on drainage and utilities, and it goes over a lot of what these videos go over, but in more of a document screenshot kind of method here. So make sure you guys are aware of those as they're now out there. Hopefully that will be beneficial to you guys, because I feel like we've gotten a lot of comments and questions on drainage and utilities. So I'm doing my best to get some content out there. Okay, so hopefully you guys are aware of what I did back on January 8th with the new drainage and utility features definitions, the dgen lib that we pushed out. I tried to blast out probably more emails than you guys probably cared to get, but I wanted to make sure I got the message out there. I basically remade the dgen lib, and when I did that, long story short is it does cause some problems for people who've already started using the dgen library or the feature definitions before I push this out. Yeah, I have a video out there on our Wiki page if you guys want to go get more info on it, which I'll post in the chat. That'll talk about more of the specifics of what I actually did. I've kind of talked about it a bunch of times now, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but all that really needs to be done is if you started any kind of drainage or utility work before I release this update, that project needs to keep using the old stuff. And the way you do that is you just have to add this line right here at the bottom of this slide here to that given worksets config file. And then it'll tell that project or workset to keep using the old stuff and not use the new stuff, and that alleviates any kind of compatibility problems that you might have. So again, that video will kind of help explain that more, but it does not affect you if you had not started using any drainage and utility stuff yet. I just want to make that clear. Okay, so now let's talk about utilities specifically and kind of how to get them into your 3D model and how to extract them. And so I'm going to go through a couple of different things here. I'm going to jump over to ORD here in a second, but I do want to kind of mention a couple differences between the way like the drainage stuff that I showed works compared to utility stuff. First thing I'm going to say is don't try to like manually draw in each utility like you would with drainage or sanitary. I don't really have node features for all of them. You're going to want to let the extraction create those, and that way it'll actually follow a surface that you select, which I'll show here in a second. And I did set up some utility filters. There's the defaults. It's also in that chapter 900 that I mentioned. In that training guide, there's tables in there as well with what the defaults are for when you use the filters. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll see in a second when I jump over to ORD here. So let's jump over to ORD. So I am in my utilities base map right here, my BU file, and I've already attached my fieldbook file, and I drew in a bunch of just random utility lines here just to kind of showcase how the tools work. I doubt you'll see something quite like this out in the field, but if we take a look at our references, I did just throw them as line strings, and I threw them in another file and referenced them in. So these aren't anything special other than just a regular migration line string on a certain level, and all I did was reference them in. Now when you get to your actual projects, I don't know how the utility data might be delivered to you. It might just be in line strings. It might be in a separate file that you reference in, or it might be directly in your utility base map and you will go in. All that stuff will work. I'll note the kind of differences if the line string is referenced in or not. So first thing you want to do, if you want to turn this into a utility model and you have those 3D, these things actually be drawn in 3D, is you want to extract them. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. So if I come up into my workflow here and I go to drainage and utilities and I go over to extract from graphic, that's what we're going to use. And now the first time you do anything in a file that deals with drainage and utilities, you're going to get this prompt. It says, hey, this action will embed files for drainage and utility projects. Do you want to proceed? Yes. Okay, so this is basically copying in a lot of the settings from that dgenlib file on drainage and utilities into this file. So it has to be done. So it takes a couple seconds. It's going to say, do you want to compact? Sure. And I decided to do this live rather than play videos. So hopefully it doesn't bite me. But I figured that'd be more fun than just playing a video, right? So hopefully we don't waste too much time on loading. But okay, so you'll notice that after that action is performed, it doesn't actually take you back into the tool. So you do have to launch that tool again. So we'll load that up. And in here, you have two options for extraction. You have from a filter or from a selection. So if you want to take a look at our filters, you can open up the filter manager. And let me make this a little bigger. And if we go and look at our dgenlib, we can see all the filters that we've already have set up. So the one we're looking at is the all utilities one. And here are all the utilities in there. So if I click on one, you can see that it's going to have kind of the definition of how this gets extracted. So for existing fiber optic, it's going to put the line on our fiber optic line existing feature definition. It's going to use a default size of 2 inches. And then if we actually hit edit filter, you can see that the criteria for how it finds it is if it's on this level. So if it finds something on this level, that means, okay, I need to extract this to this feature definition. And also I have the vertical offset defaults here as 2 feet below the surface. Okay, so that's where that default table is coming into play that I showed on my slide. So all these different ones have different defaults set. If you guys don't like those or you want to change them, you can easily just come here, copy, and paste it. Oh, if I hit the right button, you can easily paste that filter group in here, and now you can easily edit, those. If you wanted to, you just have to make sure you grab this filter group. Okay. Make sure I don't forget to say anything. Well, before I get too deep, if you guys have more questions on, do I have that new dgenlib that I was just talking about that I released back in January? I feel like the easiest way to tell is if you just go into your Explorer and you go into libraries. And you take a look at the feature definitions, this drainage and utilities one. If you go to the conduit stormwater proposed, if you see type A, type B, if you see these feature definitions, that is a really good indicator that you got the new dgenlib. If you don't, then you're probably on the old one. So that's a good way to tell. And now if your next question I normally get is, how do I know if I started using drainage and utilities before I got the update and I have that compatibility issue that I was mentioning? If you see something like that, the easiest way to tell is if you have a utility drawn, if you click on that and you look at the utility properties and you try to change the pipe size, you're going to notice that that drop down is going to be blank. That's a clear dead giveaway that you started your project before you got the update, and now you got the update, and now you're running into this compatibility issue where it's not showing the sizes. So then you'd want to do that line that I showed on that previous slide. right here. You want to add that to your work set. And so again, that video is going to talk about that, but I figure it's probably good to show those good indicators, quick ways to tell. But all right, so a little off topic there. So back to extracting graphics. Come in here. First I'm gonna do by selection first, and then I'll do by filter and show you guys the difference. So when it's on selection mode, you really get the ability to define, however you want to do that extraction. So, what vertical offset do you want? What feature definition do you want to use? What's the size you want to use? And then you come over and you're just going to select the lines that you want to extract. So if I'm going to data point to accept my method as being selection. Now I can look at my elements. So, here's the telecom line. If I had more, I could manually select them all at once, but I do have to kind of keep in mind that it's all going to go to this feature definition, so I can only select the telecom lines. I can't select different types, or they're all going to go to this one. So I will reset because that's the only one I want to extract. And then what service do you want? You can reset for the active terrain model, or you can just click on your terrain model. What parameters, so what offset do you want? -1.
Hey,
and
JD,
I don't want to ditch. Yep.
there was a question about the vertical offset there.
Oh, I missed
Is the vertical offset based on the crown, the center line, or the flow line of the utility?
Okay, so for the utilities, for these utilities, I've set them up to be based on the top of the pipe. For drainage and sanitary, I've set them up to be the invert of the pipe. So this would be from the ground to the top of the pipe. That's how I set these utility lines up, or utility feature definitions up, rather. If that is not desired, reach out to me and let me know. I can show you how to change those settings, but I figured that would be what people would want in terms of these utilities. All right, so I'll hit accept. Say I don't want a trench, and it's going to go through and it's going to extract that. So we take a quick look at the 3D. You see that line got extracted. We rotate around a little bit. Okay. Something to note here is that because I had my original line string that I used to extract, because that was in a reference, it's still there. So typically, if that's your case, you probably want to come in and turn off that referenced line string, so the telecom line, since it's technically on top of it. And then I kind of see some double up because my 3D line shown here. So if I turn that 3D line on, there's the extracted line. Now, if your line string that you used to extract was not referenced and it was directly in this file, after it does the extraction, that line string will be deleted. So just note that if your extraction has the line string directly in the file after the extraction, that original line string is gone. So just note that. Okay, so now let's go over. Oops. Let's go over the filter method. So I'm going to go back to layout, extract from graphic, change my selection to utility filter. And it's supposed to switch. What did I say earlier about doing live? All right, well, that's not supposed to happen. All right, let me reload this file for a second here. Okay, so not sure what happened there, but I got a weird error message there. I just reloaded the file. And so now I have my method set to utility. What filter do I want? I want the all utilities. If you guys remember, I did make that copy. So there's that copy of that one there. So it will show up if you do copy it. But I'm going to use this one. You can get back into the filter manager from here if you wanted to see it. You can open it up from here as well in the ribbon. The preview button doesn't work. If I hit preview, it's going to highlight everything. So not really useful there. I don't know why it's doing that, but that's not what the end result is. You'll notice the feature section's all grayed out. That's because the filters have all those set. So here's where you're taking just kind of the way the filters are set up for the defaults. So I'm going to run through this. I'll click on data point to accept my filter. Accept that filter as all utilities. It's going to go through. It should ask me for a surface here. So I can select my surface. And no, I don't want a trench. So it's going to go through. And I will say, I have seen some double extraction when I use these filters, and I've tried to figure out the cause. I can't. It seems I could do the same file, 3 times, and I get double, and then the 4th time it'll come out fine. So I don't know what's going on there, but it looks. Just thought I'd be for just full disclosure and let you guys know. You guys might see that. On this one it didn't happen, so. If you guys do notice that, just I guess look out for that. You kind of tell because you'll see like a bunch of different letters kind of in a row here, but it seems like for the most part it does work. Now I will say I did do that selection extraction over here. So if I highlight that one, I should see 2. One from the selection and then one from the filter. So be careful of that. If you extracted some things and then you use the all utility filter, it's going to find that line string again since it's in that reference. Now, that wouldn't happen if your lines were drawn in here because, like I said, that line is no longer there. But all right, so I'm going to come here and delete that duplicate one. All right, so that's the real basics of how to extract your utilities. Now, if you use the utility filter, you might need to come through here and select them and fix maybe the sizes if the size of like the water line's different. If you want to change that default offset, you can come in here and change it individually. So you kind of see the pros and cons from doing the selection mode versus the utility filter. Utility filter, you get more control, but it's not more of a batch process like the utility filter is. Some other things, if we open up our profile view here, you will see that it shows the profile here, and here is the top and bottom of that utility. So when you deal with these drainage and utility features, everything's going to show 2 lines on the profile view. There's no real way around it. So when we get to showing these on our plan sheets, I'm going to talk about some different methods that we can do to get around that issue. But if you need to modify your profile, this is a profile window. You can very easily come up to the geometry tab and you could draw in whatever you want here. If you want that to be your profile utility, you can draw all this stuff in. You can use all these vertical tools, and when you're done, just make it your active profile, and that will work. But if you want to maybe do something where you want to utilize majority of this, but maybe in one area you have some better data of depths. So if you want to do something like that, it's not too hard. What you're going to do is we're basically going to create another line here on top of this utility to use and then modify it, since we can't really modify this one. this is ruled to the surface right now, and that's where this vertical offset parameter. So you'll notice that I'm going to lose this vertical offset property and ability once I start doing some edits to this. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to get my heads up display here, and what I want to do first is I want to convert to profile rule. And that should get rid of my ability to set that offset, right? It's no longer there. Now that it's profile rule, I can create a best fit line. I'm gonna create a best fit profile, and I'm gonna leave it as no feature definition. You'll see that it doesn't really matter what feature definition we're on. Once we make it active, it'll get the right stuff. So I'm gonna take zeros for all of these. I just want it to pretty much match this line. So I'm clicking through there, and now I get a little line. I think it's probably on whatever your active symbology is. So default. So that is a profile line on top of this original utility profile line. So I can come here and I can select that, and I want to do one more thing, and I want to create a profile rule from that. And now I get like vertexes and rules, so I can very easily, come in here and select something and move it, right? Let me make this a little bit bigger. So you can do civil AccuDraw with this. So if I turn on my civil AccuDraw, now the one thing to note here is that the civil AccuDraw is on this alignment, which has, well, not alignment, a utility, which has its own stationing. So the stationing here doesn't necessarily match your centerline stationing, which I need to add that reference. It's not there yet. And another thing to watch out for is the direction of this line. If the way the extraction works is, it depends on how the line's drawn. It is what direction this utility is going in. So right now the arrows are going down, but there very well could be a case where when you extract it and these arrows are going up. So the direction of the utility might be the opposite direction of your centerline alignment. So something to look out for, because this is going to show, up station. So you might be looking this way or this way. It might look a little weird. I thought I'd note it to you guys. But anyways, if you wanted to use, the civil AccuDraw with it, like you can come here, you can click on this point, and you see how it kind of pops up that civil AccuDraw properties. So if I hit the O key to set the origin, I want to hit the C key for the civil origin. I can let go of my mouse now, and I have to do that again, O, C, and now I can select that as my reference, and I can put it offset. Maybe I know it's 3 feet, so -3. And I can lock down 3 feet below the surface right there. The only downfall is I can't really put in the station about my center line, but I guess I'd show you some tools that might help you out. So I'm just gonna move this one down a little bit more. So just pretend that that's our new profile we want to use. All you gotta do is come here and make it either active profile, and it automatically takes on the rate symbology. And that question earlier about, is it taking the crown invert? You notice that when I made that best fit profile, it followed the top. That's because that feature definition has it set to use the top. So that goes in line with that question. All right, so that that's how you can kind of edit your profiles if you need to do something like that. It's really graphical based, and come here and draw what you want. Hopefully that's helpful to you guys. So, and if you guys have questions, put it in the chat. I'll try to, if I miss them, Matt will interrupt and let me know.
There's a couple in there if you wanted to stop.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. So what about utilities outside of the terrain? So utilities outside of the terrain are gonna it's gonna go like straight, if I remember right. If that happens, because it's gonna extract it, along the limits. I don't remember if it will what it will do. If I remember right, it'll be straight line, but you can always come in to the profile and make your changes there. If we have time at the end, we can try it out to verify. How will the assumed depths of the utilities be determined? So that is, up to you. A lot of times they are assumed, like maybe your fiber optic lines assume 2 feet deep or approximate depth. Most of that time, unless you're going to get into an area where they're going to be in the way or moved, or there's a high utility area, then you might go and get a higher SU level survey, and they'll give you more accurate depths. But that's a project by project. But a lot of times we just put in a kind of assumed depth. I don't know, Matt, if you have anything to add to that. But if the question is where am I setting it, I am setting those defaults in that filter group. If you're wondering what the defaults I have set.
I'm sort of guessing here, but I think the question is how did you come up with those? The depths that you showed on the table earlier. Okay.
I made them up. If you don't like them, let me know. I can change them. I also showed copying that utility filter up and being able to change those before you run the filter as well. You could do that. But yeah, if we think we can come up with a better set of defaults, then I'm perfectly fine with changing them. I just kind of made them up. Graphical filter was created with default depths. PowerPoint showed a quick view of those depths. The question related to how the default depths are. Okay, so it goes along with it. Is there a way to limit the extraction of depth and creation of the 3D utility line to just within the limits of the terrain? The utility line where it goes beyond the terrain, the 3D line strips down to this. Okay, well, I guess they answered the question earlier about going down to 0 elevation. I don't believe there's a way to limit it. Their extraction really is the graphic. So you could, I guess, trim your line strings back to where you want it to stop. If you wanted to do something like that before you extract it, those initial line strings. But I'm not aware of a way to restrict that extraction from the filter groups, because it's just looking at your criteria you set in your filter. So right here is defining. Looks like you can define elevations to exclude. But yeah, right now they're just looking for the level. Does it matter that your original profile is still on the profile view? No, it does not. It just matters what your active profile is. So this is my active one, so that's what it's going to use. And you'll see that here in a second when I get on to the next step. Let's see here. So let me make sure I don't miss something. So extracting, modifying. Okay, so the next step, setting up these utilities to show on your plan profile. So I don't think all projects need to show utilities on the profiles. I'm going to show kind of how you can do that. I have 2 different methods to show that. If you guys are wondering how to do that. But then your crossing features are going to be through 3D Cut, which I'll also show here in a second. But I want to give an overview of the 2 different workflows when dealing with utility that's running parallel to your center line and showing that on your profile. So the first one is to dumb it down to just basic geometry tool, like just a regular geometry profile line. It has no knowledge of the utility whatsoever. The biggest benefit for doing it this way is you only get one line. So again, nobody wants to see two lines for like a little small fiber optic line on your profile, right? So that's one of the big benefits of maybe do something like that. A downfall is when you get to element annotation and that kind of stuff, since it doesn't have the knowledge of utility data, it's just going to be manual annotation. The other way is to use the profile run and project it. The pros here is it still keeps that utility data, so you can annotate off of those properties. But the cons are this is more steps. It does show the top and bottom of the pipes, but I do believe it will get fixed. I'm going to show a little defect what would get rid of this showing top and bottom on the utility on the profile. So I'll show that here in a second. This is more overview, so you're not wondering what the heck I'm showing. So I'm going to go with the first method first, and then I'll go with the second method. For plan production, I remember you had said there were profile run feature definitions. I see the SC profile runs, but not the feature definition. Well, I'm going to show that here in a second when I get to the profile runs. So I'll show that when we get to that. Okay, so the first method is really just, let me add a reference to my center line since I forgot to do that. All right. Okay, so I got my center line in here. So the first method is really to just project the profile as a regular profile linear feature definition onto my alignment, my center line alignment, so I can see it when I create my profiles. Now you'll notice that I can't do that in my utility file. So that's, I guess, one thing I wish I do, because everything with the drainage or utilities I want to do in my drainage base map or my utilities base map. I don't want to do that elsewhere. But this is, for this workaround, we'll have to go to the BK file that has this alignment. So what I'm talking about here is when I go to, say, the geometry vertical tools, if I want to, project profile to element, from here, let me turn off AccuDraw. You notice it's not going to let me. It says I can't do this since it's a reference in. Even though I can open up that and I can draw regular graphics, I can't use that tool in this utility base map. So what I have to do is I have to jump over to the file containing that center line, which is my BK file. So I'll come in here and I'll attach my utility file. And now I will use that profile from element. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say, you know what? I want to project this profile onto this center line. And I already had the feature definition set, but you'd want to set it to telecommunication line if it was, because this is a telecommunication line. So if you had a different one, you would select it. But I do want to mention these feature definitions are just basic linear feature definitions. Okay, they're not a conduit feature definition or anything like that. So you will find them under the linear utilities, and then There's all different utility ones. So those are just straight linear feature definitions, right? So now if I take a look at my profile view, you will now see I have that profile there. And you notice you can see my edit there that came through there. So it is using your active profile. So now that that's here, when I go to plan and profile creation, I will see that utility there, right? So let me jump back to the other file. Should I get the right one? My utility base map. And let me open up this profile view of my center line. And hopefully that gets fixed in the next release with the level display. And you can see there it is coming through, okay? So that's the first method. So before we get to sheet creation, let me show you the second method. So in this method, what we're going to do is it's more of a, I guess, drainage and utilities mindset. So what I want to do is create a profile run for this utility. So I'm going to go back to my drainage utilities, go to my layout, and I'm going to create a utility run from links. And so here, the feature definition, that's one of the questions. Under linear profile runs, I've created these 4 for now. And that I might add more in later. But right now, they're just going to a scratch profile run level for now. So I'm going to do that. Maybe you name it existing. Let me actually click in there. I'm going to select this link, and that's all I have for this run. Now these runs, when you want to select more than one run, that means it's still connected. You can't go jump over to somewhere else. So that's the only one I have to select. I'm going to reset to finish, and it will create a profile run graphic right there. So now with that profile run graphic, I can project that run onto my center line, right? That's something I couldn't do with the basic geometry tools. That's why I had to go to my BK file. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to select my profile run, and for the feature definition, for now, I'm just going to say use that same feature definition, the profile run. So I'm going to select that run. I'm going to project it onto my center line. And if you watch the profile view, you should see it show up, which it does. So now you see that one came in with the top and bottom a more utility way. And you'll see here is the I guess defect that I hope they fix in the next release. So this white line right here is your profile run graphic. It is supposed to follow your utility. It is not. If you watch the webinar on the drainage that I did, you'll notice that for the drainage, this does work. This profile run graphic does follow your drainage profile, but in terms of utilities, and it doesn't work. So I submitted that to Bentley. Hopefully they get that fixed soon, because when they do, that lets us then be able to use this graphic to show one line of utility rather than 2, which is ultimately what we want, right? So just to be clear here, if we go to our level display, we have my BK referenced in. So that's the single telecom line. And then what we just projected is this level, right? So there's our second method, the projection, and the first method just using that linear feature definition. Okay, so there's two different methods. So this one doesn't have utility properties. This one does. Okay. All right, so quickly watching the time run out. So I do want to keep moving here and make sure I show you guys. We don't have too much more to show, but all right. So now we're. Oh, I forgot one more thing. The crossing features, right? So what about these ones that cross? If we want to show those, so you're going to do that with your 3D cut. So you want to, and I recommend doing it in your utilities base map, because that way it just kind of, when you want to see utilities, you reference the utilities base map, right? So I'm going to create this 3D cut. I'm going to do method by corners, and then I'm going to just kind of create a box here. So you can see there's all those crossing features that then pop in right there. Keep in mind, this is a static cut. So if anything ever changes, you do have to come here and refresh your 3D cut. That also goes for level display. If you start changing your level display, like if you don't want to see something from your cut, you do have to turn the level off and then hit refresh to get that level display to kind of show up on your thing. And that level display does not work in 2020 or ORD 2020 release 1. ORD 2020 release 2, the level display with this refresh button is fixed. So hopefully you guys are all at least on 2020 release 2. All right, so let's create some sheets real fast and go over annotation, and hopefully we have some time left. So you don't want to cut sheets in here, right? So we want to create another file to create our sheets. So let me go just launch my create design files. So I want sheets. So roadway, plan profile sheet. So here, I won't go into too much detail, but if you guys are going to have a collector file, switch it to the zeros, it automatically changes to the design seed. That is for if you're going to place your name boundaries in there and then cut your sheets to separate files. Or you can just put them all in one file if it's smaller. But when you do something like that, you want to make sure that you switch this to your design seed. I don't know if we're going to have time to show cross sections, but it's basically the same. So I'll do the same. I'll create both of these now while I'm here. Again, give it some comments if you want. I'm going to create those files, check the results, everything's good. I'm going to go open up that file. And I'm going to add some references. So I want to see my field book. Set that as active. Terrain. I want to see my center line. And I want to see my utility base map. Okay. So I'm going to open up my profile view here of my center line. Okay, so right now we see only graphics that were drawn directly in the BK file, right? So what don't I see? I don't see my method 2, right? I don't see where I had that utility profile run projected. I don't see that. Why don't I see that, right? That is because I did that in my utility base map, not my geometry base map, so not my BK file. When you open this up, originally at first, it's only going to show you stuff that you drew directly on the profile in this file. But as you guys saw in my utility base map, I opened up this profile and I projected over it, right? So if I want to see that, I need to use this button right here, and it's called Attach All Profile Views. So what's that's saying is go check the rest of the references and see if I drew anything in the profile view in those other references for this given alignment, right? Hopefully I did a good job explaining that. So you're going to see when I hit this, I'm going to see another attachment come in here, and I'm going to see my my 3D cut as well as that projected profile run. So I hit that, boom, I get that utility projected profile run. I get my 3D cut graphic, but you notice I don't get any of the levels shown here inside there. And so what's going on is if we take a look at our attach tools, let's see here, I need to turn on nesting here on this utility reference. So I turned that live nesting on. Now you see I get all those graphics. I don't know why it's doing that by default, but there's kind of the workaround there. Okay, so now, granted, you're probably only going to do one of these two methods, or if you do both, then maybe you're turning one off. But real quickly, let me cut some sheets. So if I go to drawing production, name boundary, do this relatively fast. I really want to show the drainage utility stuff, not so much sheet creation stuff. So I'm going to choose Plan Pro, 1 to 20. When I turn off Create Drawing, select my center line. Now maybe there's a good location. Place that name boundary. I'll load that tool back up. I'll place the profiles. Let's plan profile, 20 scale. From plane group, there's my plane group. Great drawing. Click inside here. You can see there it is, and we will generate. So take a look. 20 scale, 1 to 1, 20 scale. All right. So I'll create those sheets. So sorry I blitzed through that, but we have other videos on profile creation. What I really want to go over before time runs out is annotation. So I'm going to jump over to the drawing model, since that's where we want to do our annotation. The profile drawing model. Okay, so in here, if you use method 1, you get that one line, right? And it doesn't have any idea about utilities. So you pretty much, if you want to annotate that, you're left with just placing a note and choosing a style here and just typing in something like existing telecom rocks depth or something like that. I don't know, something like that. All right, it's not so bad, but granted, we kind of knew that was coming because we created a linear feature. Now, if we're gonna deal with, I don't know why all these are off. Deal with the other our projected profile run. Now we do have access to the utility properties, and we could pull those to annotate it. So I have set up some text favorites for the different utility annotation. So if we take a look at the place label tool, and we go to text favorite, and I look at this drop down, I scroll all the way down, we're going to see a whole bunch of utility ones. So I have utility, communication, proposed, size and type, or just type, existing, size, type, and just type. So for right now, I had to have a different text favorite for each utility type. So communications like fiber optic, telecom, cable, all those are like your communication ones. Then there's electrical, gas, oil, and water. And either it's going to show the size and the type or just the type. So if I wanted to annotate the utility line, that most likely is going to be a communication existing type, right? So now before I do this, I'm sure you guys have seen we talk about the problems with annotation across a reference, right? So if not, right now I am in ORD 2020 release 3. So the latest one. So if that's the case, I can somewhat get the annotation to work across the reference, but I'll show you the shortcomings. If I'm in anything before the latest one, annotation across reference is really not going to work. So what I need to do is, in order to use my text favorite to pull this utility property, I actually have to load those in. And the way you do that is to just open up the utility properties. So the second I do that, it says, hey, do you want to access the properties? Yeah, I do. So it will then kind of load in all that data for me. So after I do that, my utility properties will be available for me and my text favorites will work for this current session. If you don't do this, utility text favorites will not work. And again, I'm in the latest release. So if you're not in the latest release, then you're not even going to get that prompt. Okay, so if I come up here and place label, come on. Now I'm going to make sure I have my view active here. So now I have my text favorites set. I'm going to come here. I'm going to make sure that. Okay, so if you get that little can't snap to it, saying the element's not snappable, for some reason it does that too by default. So come to your attach tools, and I believe it's this one. It's 3D one. There it is. And then the utilities, since these utilities are set to use the top as kind of the profile one, you're going to want to make sure you select the top line, not the bottom line. But so I'm going to snap to that. I'm going to place, and it's going to pull that property. So I think this one's fiber optic. So if I pick that one, you'll see how it changed the text to fiber optic, right? So those text fields are, linked to that property now. So the downfall with this in this current release is if I reload my file. So if I just do, if I reload the file, I should have saved settings, darn it. If I reload the file, it doesn't do that load of the utility properties. So it doesn't retain, or it updates the text fields to nothing. So I'm going to show that here. Go back to design here. Oh, looks like switching design is going to do it. So the thing that I'm trying to get at is you have to trigger that load. It doesn't load automatically. And that's going to cause problems if you are doing like print organizer. You have the potential for it to not do that load and update the text fields to blank because it can't get to the property. So I've stressed to Bentley that this needs to be fixed. I know they're working on it. They think they thought they had it fixed in this release, but they did miss this case right here. So in this case, it did reload. Let me save settings and show that again here, so you guys really get what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about right here. See how those fields went to blank? That is because it hasn't, this file hasn't loaded those properties. So when you loaded it, it tried to update that text field. It couldn't find the property, so the text field went to blank. So if I came in here and, what the heck? So if I came in here and just did something to trigger that load of the properties, like say open up the properties dialog, there's that loading screen. Okay, I now know it's getting those properties available. And then if I make my profile model active, that will trigger the text fields to update. And it will fill those back out. See? So that's the shortcoming right now. Now I do believe Bentley is going to fix that. I hope it's in the next release, but I can't get any confirmation from them. But once that's fixed, that's going to fix this, make this more, I guess, feasible, usable, more of a reality, maintaining across a reference. So the other one was the size. So where is this stuff coming from? This property is actually set on the utility feature definition. I just filled it out. Which I'd also notice there's this bug in the latest release where it doesn't ever actually open the utilities dialog if this is across a reference. If you want a quick workaround, you got to go and just place something, just anything, any kind of utility in this file, and then this one will let me open. Come on. Let me open this dialog. So now with the dialog open, now I can go and select one of these and it'll update. So it's some kind of bug where if it's cross-referenced, it won't actually open this dialog. Annoying. But what I wanted to show was this right here, network type user defined. So I filled all these out on all the utility feature definitions with what we typically will annotate it with. So that's what this text field is pulling, is this network type. So I filled them all out. And so this is moving towards the automatic annotation. So right now, in terms of element annotation and model annotation, it's not going to work for utilities. I have an enhancement request in there so that we can make it work, but on profiles, there's no setting just to like kind of call one out on the sheet. If I did set one up, it would do it like in an interval, which is pointless. So that's that. Same thing with, so cross sections is going to be literally the same exact thing. You either manually annotate or you use these text favorites to annotate. Now, cross sections, same thing. Element annotation, model annotation is not going to work for cross sections. I have enhancement requests in for that as well, so that the cross section model annotation group that's assigned when you cut your cross section sheets can also find these utility feature definitions, but right now that's not an option. So we are getting closer to automatic annotation, but I feel like we're probably a couple updates away. But when we get there, it's going to be nice. Everything's going to kind of just annotate automatically for you. But that is where we're at. These text favorites, I did throw in a text or an Excel file. Let me go get it real fast. I think I got another. Now I'm a little over time here, guys. I'm sorry. I did not expect to take that long to go over this. So in our standards, the ODOT utilities documentations, I added this Excel file, the drainage utilities text favorites, to help show you guys all the different text favorites for drainage and utilities. So you're gonna see there's a bunch for kind of drainage side, and then at the bottom is all the different utility ones. So it gives you kind of the name, the format, example, and if there's any requirements, like it's got to be a communication type feature, it's got to be electrical type feature. So that might be helpful for you guys to see what we have out there right now and how it's going to look, what it's going to place. I know I rushed through that at the end. I do have videos for everything I showed already on our wiki page. If you guys wanted a recap of anything. Yeah, that is for the most part what I wanted to show. I wanted to cut cross sections, but looks like we're out of time. But it's literally the same thing in terms of annotation. You just use text favorites or place note or place label, really. So with that, let's see if there's any questions. Any chance section 900 of the guide will document how to customize utility in later editions, referring to conduit types, ducts versus user defined when trying to show a duct bank? I can add in a section for customizing things. I'm actually working on custom head walls documentation now. Hopefully I get that out. I'm going to show that in our user group meeting. So there's a plug for the user group meeting. If you haven't registered for that, I put a link in at the beginning of this meeting, and I'm going to show over that stuff. But yeah, in terms of the custom size stuff, I can add some stuff in there for that. Really it all comes down to these utility properties and changing things that user defined and setting up your own stuff. But yeah, I can work on putting something together. The crossing some 3D cut, are the utilities that are showing in your profile just surveyed lines, or did you have to make them 3D lines in order to send the profile? So those in the 3D cut, those circles or these things right here showing up, that is a direct slice of the 3D model. And that utility was drawn when I extracted the utility. So if I just open up like a 3D model, when I did that extraction, it drew all those in 3D and it gave those default depths, and then I showed you can go in and how you can change that. But all these are drawn in 3D, and so when I did that 3D cut, it sliced the kind of the model right there, and so these pipes that we're crossing, it's literally like a direct slice, and it's going to draw it in exactly how it crosses that center line. So that is, hopefully that answers your question. Will this be an issue with annotating when trying to publish PDF set? How are those settings loaded prior? So that's where I was saying it could be a problem depending on how you're printing, if you have the file open or if you don't have it open. You could turn off, there is a setting to auto update text fields. So you could turn that off, and then the text fields will not automatically update, and that would solve the problem. But then you got to remember that's all text favorites, not just drainage utilities. That's all of your text favorites across their whole plan will not auto update. So you could turn that off. That could be one way around it. You might just, take it to basic text. So you could just after it places it, you could double click on it and highlight it all, just copy it and then paste it, and it would just paste it as static text. It would no longer be a text field. I know it's not ideal. But that was their one hiccup to really making this a more useful workflow. So I gotta believe they're gonna fix it in the next update. It's unfortunate, but I guess I wanted to show everything that I put together, where we're trying to go with the software, what we're trying to make it do, what's available to you guys, trying to lay it all out there, give you guys different workflows. Can we get abbreviated? Did I skip one? Is there an opportunity to add a description to utilities like remain? Yeah, so am I still in that? Yeah, so you can still come in here and edit your text elements after they're placed. Even if you did place label, you can come in here. You don't want to, obviously you don't want to delete that text field, but you can still type in what you want here. That'll stick. So like to be whatever replaced, or more so probably your catch basins and things like that. Yeah, that you can do that. Can we abbreviate standards? Fitting in whole words like fiber optic, electrical is hard for crowded. Yes, so I thought I put FO, but I guess I put fiber optic. I abbreviated telecom. Yeah, so I can change that to something so the default's a little better. You can come into your properties. Did I close that window? You can easily change it, but yeah, you want it to be more of a, well, I guess less work. And I must have closed that, so let me. Oh no, here it is. So you can come here and you can change that value to, at least I thought you could. It's not gonna let you. Never mind. So that's probably gonna be down to the feature definition level. So a little bit more complicated. Now, what I wanted to do.
Is that because that's reference JD?
Oh, you're right, Matt. Thanks. Yep. So it's probably because this doesn't exist in this file. So thank you, Matt. I've gone a mile a minute here. I'm assuming you could probably edit that if I jump over to the other file. Now with the drainage and utility stuff, if you remember how I set those up, I actually used I think it was the nodes, if I remember right. But the problem with the utilities is I can't predefine that because utilities don't define a prototype. So I had to use some other property because it was really nice using the notes like that because you could easily, bulk edit them with like a flex table or things like that. But when it came to utilities, you can't default a prototype, so you can't default that value. So I had to go down and I just used that, which is better than what they had. They're non, like they're standard types. These are like long names. So that's the best I come up with to try to get to that state where we're automating stuff. But I'm betting, yeah, Matt's probably right. If I jump back over to my utility file, I could probably change that. I'm wondering if I can get that in a flex table or not to kind of more easily bulk change it too. I haven't tried that. Let's begin my profile run. Okay. No, it's not letting me change it. So yeah. Probably have to go to the feature definition. The real question is, does that retroactively fix it? No. I'll have to look into that. It's not looking nice. Not looking good. I'm sure there's got to be a way around it. My alternative thought was to just use the notes, but I didn't do that. So I can change the default down to more abbreviated. I think telecom's probably the most we're going to abbreviate to, but like fiber optic, I can put FO. Fiber optic, what I do? Cable TV. Cable TV, fiber optic. Yeah, so I'm wondering if you set that before you place it, which I'll have to get back on you with that with a workflow. But there is what I set up, trying to get to that automated annotation. So I still feel like we got a little bit more work to go, but I wanted to show you guys, we were getting some questions on it. I know we're way over time, or way over our hour. Hopefully you guys found it beneficial and learned something. Is there any more questions? Is there a way to not have utilities crossing follow the crown of the road without individually changing them? I'm not sure I quite understand that question. The profile, it follows the profile of your utility, and just shows it where it crosses the. Are you saying where you don't want it to show at the center of what it looks like at the center? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, JD, I think they're saying since you're extracting from a terrain and the existing is crowned, they don't want to follow that crown.
No, the best you could do is go and edit the profile, and make it not do that. This is the best you can do. So I know I was probably talking a mile a minute. I guess I did not estimate correctly on how long it would take to show that. I didn't feel like I showed a lot, but if you guys have any more questions, feel free to reach out. The best way to reach us is through our FormStack support requests. So I just put the link in there. That's the best way to reach us because it goes to everyone in our office. And with that, I think I'll end today's webinar. We do not have a topic scheduled yet for our next webinar, but it will be sometime in April. So look forward to a notification coming out about that and what our topic will be. So we'll probably come up with that soon. Reminder, the CADD user group meeting is our next meeting coming up. So if you haven't registered for that, go ahead and register. That's all I got, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. See you guys next time.